your opinion, what is the most drastic change over time since then?
It depends on what kind of change you're talking about. We could look at our society, if you want to look at maybe the American society or global society. Everything keeps rolling along. I was reading an article just lately about in the Atlantic, and it was talking about how democracy for people now is not something that they practice, and so we're having to figure that kind of thing out. When I was born, it was right after the war. Everybody was so excited, and we came out of the U.S. came out of the war where we were benefiting. We were already built back. We weren't bombed. And it wasn't like Germany or it wasn't like England where it was all bombed. So whenever we came back, like my father came back and he started having a family and everything was very positive in this country. Everything was very negative in other countries because they were having to rebuild after bombing and stuff. So we had a real excitement. People that were born that age, people that were parents that age, people that participated in it. It was a real big excitement about being an American. And so we build on that. We built on that through the 50s, the 60s. Then we come into the 60s. What the 60s were a whole decade of problems. And we had assassinations, we had all kinds of movements, we had the Vietnam War, we had civil rights movements, we had everything got perking along, and it started into that cauldron, and we had presidents that were killed. We had really bad kind of coming out during that decade, the 60s and the early 70s. That's when the feminists came out. Any kind of movement you could think of, you look at the 60s and see they all took off. If you say that there was problems with the Vietnam War because of the Vietnam War, well, you can also look and see that there were problems in there were a bunch of prison marches and stuff like that. There were riots then. There were labor union problems. Everything kind of follows along. So we created a big change during the 60s, and it went into the 70s, and then we had to get over that. So now we're in the process of getting over the things, and we're supposed to be over them. But here we sit and we don't know, where's it gotten us? We're all divided. We're very divided in the way that we feel. There's a lot of racism that goes on now. We should have been better, but now we're worse because we have become so segmented. And on the other, it's like we get it together. I used to say, I'm the kind of person I can explain my life. What I do is I get my shit together and then I spread it out. And I think that we do that as a society too. We spend a whole decade getting everything together and then we spread it out and have to start over again. So I think we've entered different times now, but it's going to be a process, just like everything. I don't know how we're going to turn out because we're in the middle of it. So I hope it turns out well. What we have to do, I think, is to take the next best step according to us, how we want to live our lives. And make it with us. You know, people say, do you pray for things? They ask me, do you pray for things? And I said, my prayers are in my actions. Every time I take the next best step to finish something or to deal with something or my personal growth or going to school, getting my education, increasing my education, looking at my profession, I have to say that I've tried to take the next best step, and I hope that gets me there. So that's what I try to do on a daily basis.
Yeah, it's definitely shown in your story.